Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Adam Martin. I'm with Martin's Farm Compost in Greenfield, Massachusetts, and kind of want to give you some understanding of what we do here at the farm, why we do it, and the responsibility I have as a farmer, as a neighbor for my neighbors and the community. My heart is to make a difference here at the farm, taking the organics out of the waste stream and turning it into a valuable compost soil at the end of the process, because a lot is wasted here in America and in Massachusetts, and Massachusetts is really one of the states that's leading the way. In 2014, the state passed an organic waste ban. That means any business, school, entity that generates more than a ton or more of green waste a week has to outsource it. It's not allowed into our landfills. Currently, right now in the state, we have about 8 years at maximum for our landfills before they're all at capacity. So that's a big problem. Just a quick facts is on average, everybody that buys their groceries, about 20 to 45% of what is bought at the grocery store we end up throwing away. We don't use. We'll talk about meals prepared. For every meal prepared in the restaurant, in the school systems, hospitals, approximately about a half to a quarter pound of food waste is thrown out. So those are just some kind of quick facts that we have. That's the reality of what organic waste is generated and how much is thrown out. So in 1987, we were one of the first farms in Massachusetts permitted by the DEP to be able to do on-farm composting with the food waste. So kind of pioneers in this field, and which is incredible. My father started it. I'm 32. We've been doing this for 30 years, and it's my passion. I want to make that difference. I want to take that organic waste out of the waste stream and turn it into a valuable compost that the customers can come back and buy to grow their gardens again and just complete the circle, close it up. So make it right. So this tour I want to be encouraging, but also understand the extents that I've taken personally on this farm to make sure I'm compliant with the DEP, compliant with the local board of health, and also making sure I'm being the best neighbor that I most possibly can be. I have approximately about 300 neighbors on the northern and western boundaries of the farm. We have a 110-acre farm. I compost on 3 acres of the farm. The rest of the farm is used for farming, for hay, and for animals. So again, the food stocks come from schools, restaurants, grocery stores. The community, residents bring their food scraps here. Paper, cardboard, clean wood, their grass, their leaves. We do take in some horse manures, sometimes some cow manures. I don't do anything with biosolids. We don't do anything with biosolids here. And what we do is we take those products, those feedstocks, and in 13 weeks, 3 months with ideal weather conditions, we can take all of those organics and turn them into a compost. So the first step that happens when the trucks come in to bring those feedstocks to me is they weigh them in so I can know about how much of that feedstock we're taking in per day, per load, so I can be able to charge accordingly, but also know what the incoming weight of the material is. Because again, I don't just take cardboard and paper and grind it up and put it in a row and expect to make a compost. I want to make a very high quality compost. I want my composting process to go successfully and well, so I got to make sure that my recipe is just right. So as you can see behind me, there's a big machine called the Beast that's grinding up all the feedstocks right now. It's on a concrete pad. So when the trucks come in, they dump on that pad back there, and the first thing that we do is we really open up the loads that come in, because we're looking for contamination. And also I want this video to be encouraging to people about making that right choice. Yes, you want to, make the green choice and put your banana peel or your apple or your scrapings off your plate into the compost bin that's going to go for composting, but you have your steel fork on it, or you have a glass bottle on your tray, or you got a sandwich or a chip bag. A lot of people, they don't want to touch it. They just throw it all into the compost can. And what's happening more is there's the green bio bags, so there's the biodegradable plastics. So those come all in, and the loads come in mixed at the farm. It's the cardboard, the paper, clean wood, the food waste. Most of the time they're all mixed together, all in the same load. So again, what we do is we open up those loads with the loader, and then we gotta hunt for any contamination. Again, plastics, glass, any metals, even with, you know, the containers, you get people illegal dumping, you know, throwing regular rubbish in the cans. So we want to pick them out. I don't want them into the compost. I don't want them into the process. So we pick them out by hand. It's not really that fun at all. We spend about 8 to 9 hours a week, man hours, sorting the loads out. And so once we sort the loads out, then what I got to do is I got to mix things properly. You know, we're looking at carbon and nitrogen. Carbon are things like paper, cardboard, wood. Nitrogen are things like our food waste, our manures, our grass, our leaves. So I do a 30-to-1 carbon-nitrogen ratio, get it mixed up well, and that's when I put it through that big machine called the Beast. And what that does is that grinds everything up. It sizes it, 7-inch minus, it's mixing it, shredding it, and once it's shredded, then we have what we call our grindings, and then we put them in these long rows called windrows. So our next phase will be, we'll go over and we'll talk about what happens when we put them in windrows. Once we have our grindings from the Beast all ground up, everything's mixed well, what we do is we then take the grindings and we put them in these long rows called windrows. These rows are 500 feet long. There's approximately 500 yards of the grindings, food stock, in each and every one of these rows. So then what we do is we lay the rows out, we lay the rows with a loader, and we lay them out. And what we then do is behind me there's this machine called a windrow turner. So what I do with that windrow turner, it's propped up right now, but what that tool does is that goes down over the row. There's a big auger, and what it does is it mixes everything up, and it also helps blend it, mix it, but also helps introduce oxygen into these rows. Because the method of compost that we do is windrow method, a humidification aerobic composting process. So what we're doing is these rows are alive. Since I got my recipe right on my carbon nitrogen, I got the feedstocks right. Now we can let the microbes do what they do best. They eat things up, they break down. So once I make these long windrows, I then turn it with the windrow turner, and when I turn it with the windrow turner, I also add a inoculant. It's an odor control, and it's organic, it's not a chemical, and what that does is that allows the microbes to help encapsulate more of the oxygen when I turn the row. So once I apply that odor control and turn the row, then I use what's called a biofilter. As you can see, a lot of the rows are very dark right now. Well, if you dug down like a foot, they'd be a lot lighter. As each row, because every row we make about two windrows every month. So each one of these is at a different stage of life. So once we get the rows made and we get them turned, we put what's called a biofilter on top of the row. I'm trying to work with my odor control management with my odor control solution through Global Odor Technologies, that I use water to help deliver the odor solution into the row to feed the microbes. Then secondly, I use what's called a biofilter, which is clean wood chips and compost that didn't screen out. I have a big screener that we use to screen at the end of the process, and when I'm screening things out, I'm getting the fine compost to be able to sell. And then my 3 byproducts are plastics, wood chip, and rocks. So again, we'll start with the plastics. Plastics are from, contamination that come in the loads. We get about 90 to 95% of any plastics that come in on the loads. But then what we don't see, or that's in a green bio bag, when it gets ground up, it gets turned into a million pieces. So that's why I try to screen the end compost so fine. I screen it 5/16 minus. So I have the fine compost to be able to sell. Then the plastics, I built this big vacuum that I'm vacuuming the plastic off of the screener and putting that into an enclosed dumpster that I bring to the landfill. And then secondly, we have wood chips. Those wood chips I'm able to separate out from the rocks. We built a machine that's a de-rocker that can take the rocks out of the wood chips. So I'm getting a clean wood chip back from my byproduct in screening, and that's what we're calling for our biofilter that we're able to put back onto the rows. So we close that loop as well. And so even with that clean wood, and then again screening to 5/16 minus, that's really fine. Well, what's one of the great qualities of compost? Well, it holds 5 times its weight of water, you know, so things have to be really dry to be able to screen that fine. So when things aren't that dry, but I need to screen, you know, you still have finished fine compost that didn't screen out. So whatever that compost is left is in that wood chips that I'm able to put back onto the row for a biofilter. So again, that's helping me with odor, that biofilter. And then again, when I turn the row, because I turn the row between 7 to 10 times for the life of the row before I can get it, you know, to be able to screen, that wood is acting as another carbon source to be able to get mixed into the row to be able to help with oxygen. You know, because again, you think of cardboard and food waste, you grind that up, it's pretty dense. It's very dense. So the wood in there helps fluff things up and helps allow the oxygen to stay in there. So as we come over here, this row is about 3 months. And again, I said it's about 13 weeks of ideal weather conditions that I'm able to get it at a screenable state. But I just turned this row. You know, and even with just turning it, I have a temperature of 124. That's really good. But what's important is I take the temperatures before I turn the rows. Because during the life of the row, come on over. Let's go down over here. She's chilly. So this row's a little chilly. This needs a first turn. So my temperature is actually going down to around 85-ish. Once I turn it and get that oxygen in, she'll accelerate back up. This row's already been turned about 4 times. And as you can see, the temperature is climbing right up. So when I'm looking at temperatures of these rows, I want to make sure they get above 133 degrees. Once they're above 133 degrees, I know that any weed seeds or pathogens are killed. You know, because my compost is certified by the Bay State Growers Association, which means organic farmers and gardeners, it's approved to be able to use, and they're, you know, the compost is. So I have to make sure that my temperatures are right. You know, not just for them, but also just in the health of the windrow and the compost process itself. So temperature is one thing that I'm checking on. Secondly is moisture. So as I dig into the row and I check, and again, we just got out of winter time, and this is the first couple nice days. You can kind of see that's a little wet. You know, you want to check for your moisture and make sure that it's not dripping water out. If I squeeze as hard as I can, no, it's not quite dripping water out yet, but that's still a little bit wet. So when I turn it, it helps get air in there, but then it also helps to dry things out when things get too wet. So that's the problems that we have during the winter and a wet spring or even a wet year. We have issues with having too much water. So I have special tarps that I can pull that I put over the rows if we start to get too much water. Or in the summertime, like last year, it was really dry. Well, the rows keep cooking and cooking and cooking, you know, and then if they lose their moisture, they're pretty hot. Once they get above 170 degrees, that's too hot of an environment for the microbes to really survive. They start dying off. So then what I do is with the water wagon behind the turner, I end up adding water on the row and then turning that right in to be able to help to make sure that my moisture stays right. And again, you don't want them too wet and you don't want them too dry. Remember, if they get too wet, then you're going to be losing your oxygen. Then things are going to start breaking down anaerobically, which is without oxygen, and that really slows the process down. That really also makes a big difference with your odors as well. Things tend to get a lot more smellier when things start breaking down anaerobically without oxygen. And again, it's aerobically that's how, you know, we like to do our composting method. So again, we turn the rows between 7 to 10 times in the life of the row being made here, and that row in another 3 weeks, that row 1 will be ready to be screened. And by the time row 1's ready to be screened, you know, because I have 12 rows in total here, row 12 will be being made, and then I screen row 1, and then I'll be able to start the process all over again. So again, the rows only really sit there between 3 to 4 months, you know, to go through its process to be able to get to a screenable state, and then we're able to start all over again. So again, the highlights are temperature, oxygen, moisture, the things that are monitored. You know, great weather conditions, I can do it in 13 weeks. And you know, my odor control, going back to specifically my odor control. Again, I use that in the beginning of the process, dealing with the microbes, letting them encapsulate more of the oxygen, kind of giving them just what they need to get stable and happy. And then secondly, on my water wagon, I have a spray bar that goes over the row. So I have a topical odor solution as well. And what that is, I mix that with water, put the odor solution in there, and that's like a steroid for the bacteria that are generating the odors coming off of the row. So I'm able to do a topical spray with that odor solution to be able to help mitigate my odors as well, because again, I don't want odors to escape off of the farm and to be a nuisance to any of my neighbors. So just on that odor control plan that I use on the rows themselves, I spend between $20,000 to $25,000 a year just on that current odor control program. And as you can see, there's this white pipe that's going around the northern and western perimeter of our composting site, and that's called the perimeter vapor system. And we'll go over to that and I'll explain how that works. Western Mass is really leading the way in Massachusetts. We have been for years of organic waste diversion. Massachusetts is one of the states that's really leading the way in the country. So we all have something to be very proud of for the difference that we are making, we're going to make, and continue to make. So again, going to deal with odor control management. This is my newest purchase. This is my newest tool in my belt. This is called a perimeter vapor system. As you can see, we have the shack, which I'll show you what's inside the shack, but you can see vape shacky, neighbor happy, you know. And again, I have not been forced to by the town board of health. I have not been forced to by the Massachusetts DEP, but one of the things is with my compliance is making sure that odors don't go off the site, off the farm. Well, as you can see, we're not manufacturing perfume down here. You know, we're doing composting. I'm dealing with my biggest extremity is the weather. Nothing's normal about the weather anymore. You know, the weather has changed so much. It's going to continue to keep changing. It's just wacky. You're like Farmer's Almanac. I don't know how good that thing is anymore. You know, we're just breaking records left and right from one thing or the other we're doing with the weather. So what this system does, again, it's a perimeter vapor system. It's a system from Global Odor Technologies. Again, it uses active organic chemistry. So I'm not putting any chemicals into the rows that when I'm making them using the organic tools in the, the odor tools in the row, and this is not a chemical. So what this does is this is a big air pump that pushes air. As you can see, I have 1,300 linear feet of this special pipe that the air is going through. There's holes drilled in designated points on the pipe, and so the air is going up through the pipe, up into the air, and it's going right into the air. And with the odor solution, when it mixes into the air, it's a vapor, you know. It's odorless, it's tasteless, it's not harmful, you're not going to grow a third eyeball, you know, your dog's not going to glow. But what it does is as it goes into the air and comes across an odor molecule, what it does is it sticks to it. One of the things to make it, render it too heavy to fly, so that odor will drop, odor molecule will drop down, or it changes the compounds of that odor molecule for them to break apart so it doesn't stink, or it completely destroys it. It can do, one of those three things or all three things. And again, I'm trying to explain this the best I can because this is the newest system on the market. We're one of the first farms in the country with this exact system. So learning about the calibrations, learning to be an organic chemist now, understanding the odors and stuff, and so it seems to be working right now. Again, learning to dial it in. We can still change the odor solution to attack more volatile odors than others. So again, it's going to be a little time thing figuring out, but this type of system can work for not just the farm doing on-farm composting. It can work for municipalities. It can work for wastewater treatment plants. It can work for, there's more of the aerobic digesters going in that generate odors. It'll work for that. So again, this system can work for anybody that's having odors, and one of my heart's thing was like, I want to lead the way. I want to be an example. I want to make that difference. I want to be a blessing to other people, other business, other communities that are dealing with odors, that have been dealing with odors, and being able to say, hey, this system works. I haven't had any complaints this year, which is a huge thing. But again, I continue to use my regular odor control program into the rows when I'm making the rows and the topical if, you know, we've had crazy weather or odors start to get extreme. So, you know, this type of system is very expensive. It's very expensive to run every month, you know. So far in this system alone, I have, you know, around $25,000, you know, and it can cost me up to, you know, $1,500 a month to run. But again, learning the calibrations, learning the fine-tune adjustments of it, you know, and I also have the control of it. If we've had rain for a week and it's really foggy weather when odors seem to, you know, get more intense, I can adjust the intensity of how much odor solution this is putting into the air. So again, learning it, but it seems to be working well so far. But as we come in, you can see it's a big air pump. This is my odor control solution right here. I have the monitoring pump. I also have an insulated jacket because in the wintertime you don't want the odor solution in the drum to freeze up. Come on in. You know, and then I have a special filter pipe that where the odor solution goes in, gets atomized, mixed in with the air, and then goes out as a vapor. Vape Shacky, neighbor happy. Global Odor Technologies. Perimeter vapor system. Thank you. Alright, so this is the screener that we use to screen the compost at the end of the process, and it's up the shop. I'm building a third vacuum for it. Again, in the you know, it's my heart to make sure the compost is as pure as possible. And again, going on talking about, you know, plastics and stuff like that, the biggest thing that we deal with is also like the plastics on the fruit stickers, you know. So this machine helps me screen the compost down to 5/16 minus, which gets about 95% of any of the plastic, and then the little plastic that does fall through, I'm trying to vacuum that out and blow that into a contained dumpster as well. But as you can see, up top there, that's a vibrating grizzly. So the loader dumps the compost on top of that grizzly. It drops it down into the machine, and then at the end you can kind of see a big drum that's at an angle. That's where the screens are, the 5/16 screens. So the fine compost falls down through the screens, and which comes up to this conveyor here. It's called the radial stacker, and so the finished compost comes out to this end. And as you can see, that drum is at an angle, so the things that, you know, will keep tumbling down the drum is what we call our tailings, which consist of wood chips, rocks, and the small plastic. So those will keep tumbling down the drum, going up that rear conveyor. And again, over here, as you turn around, that fancy green Dr. Seuss looking machine, that's my vacuum. It looks really weird, but it works really well. You know, they wanted $234,000 for a machine to suck plastic and vacuum the plastic and separate the wood chips and rocks and down at the farm. We don't carry that kind of money, and they don't use coupons about selling those machines. So we, Yankee Ingenuity, will build it ourselves, and that machine works really well. So again, I'm able to suck the plastic, blow that into a dumpster, get that out of here, and the wood chips able to put back onto the rows again, and then rocks able to just kind of, you know, use to fill in the little potholes and stuff for the roads. So that's the screener. You know, again, my heart is really to make a beautiful, pure, nice compost, and that's a tool that I've purchased to be able to help do that. Thank you. Alright, so this is our compost, and this is what we make. As we talked about, cardboard, food waste, paper, grass, manures, leaves. In 13 weeks, we can turn it into this. So this is our premium compost. We sell it for $46 a yard. This compost is sold to homeowners, organic farmers, and gardeners, landscapers. And the best way to use it is to be able to take the compost and amend your garden every 2 to 3 years. You can take this, put 2-3 inches thick on top. You can rototill it in. Some people like to just leave it on top, which works out fine. But this compost really helps feed your garden. When you have a pretty decent established soil already, this is the food that you would buy to be able to help feed your gardens. And people say their vegetables taste better, they grow better, they hold up to more severe weather. The bugs don't like it as much. So yeah, we make this compost, and you know, we don't just sell it like this and say, hey, hopefully it works for you. No, we work with Penn State University. We do with soil analysis, so I really am able to know all the properties of this compost. So when people have the real tough questions to ask about, I'm able to answer them with clarity and be able to show them a legitimate soil analysis of the compost. And we do soil analysis between 2 to 3 times a year. So this is our premium compost for $46 a yard. So in this bin here, we have what we call a loam and compost mix. This is half loam, half compost, and we sell this product for people that are doing raised beds that don't have any soil. You need the loam. You need the loam to be able to be your base, and the compost obviously has your food, and the compost will get eaten up by the ground, by the plants. That's why you need to amend it every 2 to 3 years, but with the loam it's going to stay there. You know, that's going to be your base that will stay there. So people that are trying to grow grass, that their soil is really sandy, rocky, clay, really gnarly, we encourage them to use the loam and compost mix, and that will help them plant, you know, grow grass and also to establish the gardens. Our next product is our compost mulch. This is half compost, half natural mulch. This is used for people with like flower beds or established gardens, and they want to help feed it, but they also want to help with weed suppression. So this is half of our compost, half of our natural mulch mixed together. And unlike conventional mulch, when people, you know, mulch on their flower beds and stuff, and they want to plant a new annual or a new flower plant, you know, they're going to kind of shuffle aside the conventional mulch to get down to the soil. You know, this stuff you can plant right in it too as well. So this is our compost mulch we sell for $43 a yard. This right here, this is our top shelf. This is our 80% compost to 20% biochar blend. This is for the more serious gardeners, organic farmers that know about biochar. Now, biochar is a byproduct from a wood processing, you know, a biomass generator, and this biochar that I get at the farm here comes from Ashland, New Hampshire, from a biomass generator up there. They generate the best biochar. Their byproduct is the biochar, which is a lot different than wood ash, and it's supposed to be some of the best in New England. And it's from Nextchar. So again, I mixed 80% of the compost to 20% of the biochar. And again, some qualities of the biochar is just like the compost with its moisture retention capacity. It can hold 5 times its weight in water. Well, the biochar can as well. Secondly, the biochar adds a permanent carbon source. So you're not going to have to be adding carbon to the soil anymore. The biochar is there to stay. And then thirdly, with the compost and the biochar, the microbes, they love it. It really allows them to thrive and survive and just do their job and do their job really well. So this is my compost biochar blend. We get $70 a yard for this, and people are having great success with it. And so just this is the straight biochar. That's what the biochar looks like. So again, with having our mix that we just saw, I take the work out from customers with having it all blended and mixed and stable. But for some people that want to dabble with the biochar straight themselves, I do sell the straight biochar here at the farm for $100 a yard. And again, with any more of the process or products that we offer, please look at our website, martinsfarmcompost.com. And remember, you too can grow like a pro with Martin's Farm Compost.